Monday's rolled around. It's been almost 40 hours since the ball game. I think we can echo some of the same thoughts we had Saturday night, in that I thought our effort was good in the ball game. I'll start with the good first, as we did with the team. I thought our effort was good. I thought there was a lot of want to on our football team. I thought they battled and competed for 4 quarters. Unfortunately, our execution wasn't very good. And anytime you play a team of that caliber, especially on the road, it's difficult to overcome 13 penalties, 11 of which they accepted. It's difficult to overcome when you have some blown assignments, because when you blow an assignment, they exploit it. And we saw it on both sides of the ball. We blew 2 protections, they sacked our quarterback. We blew 3 coverages, they had 3 big completions, one of which was for a touchdown. And so the mistakes become magnified against a team of that caliber. And I take full responsibility for that. We have to clean those things up. We have to become a disciplined football team, a smart football team, and one that plays the cards or plays the hand or plays the call from the sidelines that they're dealt, and can go out and execute those things at a high level and still play with the tremendous effort and want to that our kids possess. So we have our work cut out for us. We have some adversity that we're going to have to deal with, whether it be getting up off the mat after a tough loss like this, or dealing with some injuries that we've been faced with. But I believe we'll do that. I believe we've got the character in our locker room and on our coaching staff to do that. From all indications of what I saw today, getting back on the practice field, we've got the leadership in place that has our guys moving in the right direction to do those things. But this week is totally about us, and that's to take nothing away from Nigel and Portland State. For our program to get back on track, we have to focus on ourselves right now. This is kind of like almost like a healing process, and we have to rectify some things schematically on the offensive side of the ball, so that we can become the type of offense that I think we're capable of being. We have to continually find the moments of when maybe we do lack the effort on the defensive side of the ball. There were very few of them, but when there was some there, it was glaring. And we have to continually play together on the defensive side of the ball, so that, because we can play hard for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 plays, but one mistake on that side of the ball against good teams is glaring. So we've got things that need to be fixed, and we can't. We touched on after week 1, about not condoning in victory what you would in defeat. Well, that's even more so now in defeat. That there's things that we have to get fixed, and we'll get fixed. I don't doubt that amongst our coaching staff. I don't doubt that amongst the leaders on our team, the character, the want to in our locker room. But for us to get better, we have to get better. We have to improve, and that's the task at hand.
Steve, how's Kohler doing?
Well, he had an MRI this morning to find out if it was anything worse than what it was. I do know that the knee was really swollen yesterday. Part of that, I think, could be due to the long flight coming back. I would think he's a long shot to play Saturday. I do know we have a bye coming out of this weekend's game Saturday, so hopefully it's not long term. We don't think it is, but again, we'll have to wait to see. Jadon's turf toe was limited today, didn't do much. Kevin Smith didn't do much today with his knee again, neither of which we don't think are long term, but it held him out enough today. Feeney had an MRI in his shoulder, so we'll find out more there with him on where he's at as well.
Was that Feeney's shoulder that he'd had the surgery on?
The other one.
What do you need to see from Shane Brostick to feel comfortable playing here?
Well, Shane probably had earned an opportunity to play last week, quite honestly. I just didn't feel like it was the right thing to do for a true freshman offensive lineman to get his first time playing in that environment against that caliber of defensive line. I felt like for his psyche and for him, that probably wasn't the best scenario for Shane. We'll probably see him this Saturday playing football for us.
As far as the movement along the offensive line, I know you've listed some guys on the depth chart. Is there any? I know Drew Schaefer had worked out at left tackle. Is there any thought of moving him back outside, or do you want to keep him at center?
I'd like to keep him inside. Micah, it's unfortunate. There's twice he doesn't get out of his stance in the game. And, once was a miscommunication coming from the inside out with Drew getting back out to him, and another was a miscommunication on what the cadence was. But outside of that, Micah played a pretty good game against two premier defensive ends. Sam Montgomery, I thought, really came to play that night. I mean, after not playing much the first week, and the sack he gets is one where he's unblocked. I mean, we don't get out of our stance. But I thought when Micah set him, Micah played pretty well and actually did some decent things in the run game. You got to continually work with him on his hand placement and getting his hands inside. Sometimes he has a tendency to get his hands outside of the frame of the man. And against good defensive ends, when their hands are inside, it's hard to keep blocks sustained. But he showed some bright signs against probably two of the better defensive ends he's going to see all year.
Steve, it seems kind of like a chicken and egg argument in terms of you getting into rhythm as a play call and the offense getting into a rhythm as executing. But
right.
But what has to come first there?
Me, I've tried to take pride in creating rhythm for our offense and creating rhythm for the quarterback and for the receivers and the backs and finding that nice balance and mix to what we do and keeping teams off balance and so back to the drawing board that way on what the plan will be for this Saturday, and then as we move forward and identifying the guys that how they respond to different types of plays. We had an opportunity there early in the game. I talked about this Saturday night to really, I thought, take a hold of the game. We got the turnover and punched the ball in the end zone, and we weren't able to do it. And hindsight's 20/20. Maybe throw something to Austin or to Case in there early in the game to the guys in that environment who've been in the environment a little bit more. But we liked the calls we had on second and third down. It just didn't work out our way.
I feel like the running game right now is more just with the front or the backs or everything put together.
I think it's a combination of a lot of things. I think that week one we saw a pretty unorthodox defense with some new faces on the offensive line. And lost a back who was going to get probably half of those carries early in the ball game. You go into week two with some changes up front, and you go against arguably the best run defense in America. We had a tough time. I think there was more yards there for us that we didn't capitalize on. And so now we go into week three with again another change up front on the offensive line, and so we'll have to, what I think we've already talked about as a staff is, what are we hanging our hat on this week so that the O-line can play with continuity? They can come off the ball with confidence, aggression, and the backs can understand the blocking schemes really well and run the ball violently, but with a purpose to extend the runs rather than just what they're blocked for. And that's what good backs do. You block runs for 4, 8, 10 yards, whatever they are, and good ones turn them into games at 20 and 30 and 40. I think we have the backs capable of doing that, but we have to make sure they understand the schemes and how things are going to get blocked so that they can understand where those blocks are coming from to get ready to make those cuts, to create those bigger plays. And that's got to be our focus and purpose this week.
When you have games like that, Steve, and they're the A part of that ABC scheduling, does it make you want to revisit the kind of the A part of it?
No, it makes me want to puke, quite honestly. That's just how I felt for 48 hours because we're better than that, and that's the part that is so frustrating, because we're a good football team, and I know we probably haven't played to our capabilities here the first 2 weeks of the season. And that's why the goal for Saturday night is to walk out of CenturyLink Field feeling good about ourselves as the preseason comes to an end, as we get ready to go into the regular season of Pac-12 play. And I don't like the feeling I've had here for the last couple weeks, and I won't like it this entire week until we go out and put a product on the field that we all can be proud of. And we haven't been able to do that for 2 weeks.
Keith had mentioned that he'd gotten caught up looking for defensive linemen and trying to be self-preservatory and not looking downfield at receivers. How do you fix that to kind of get him away from doing that?
I think first, when you do that at quarterback, it can make it hard to play the position. And, Keith's a very bright young man, and for him to recognize it and then ultimately admit it takes a pretty big guy to do those types of things. We'll do some things from a protection standpoint to where he won't have to be as concerned about what's going on up front. And I think, I talked to Keith about this earlier today. He's dealt with adversity before. Obviously last year with injuries and things that he had to deal with. All of that adversity was from within, so he was focused on himself and ultimately played at a really high level. Right now he's got some adversity that's going on around him. And I think he's trying to fix that adversity and rather than focusing on himself. And so we got to get him to shift his attention to Keith Price, number 17, and what do I need to do all week to get ready to play at a high level on Saturday, and allow myself and the other coaches to fix the things that are going on around him. And I think he understands that. He ironically had one of his most spirited, energized practices today, and it was a Monday. And normally Mondays he's pretty light, but he was into it, he was fired up, and so hopefully that message hit home.
Steve, is that a product of him trying to be a bigger leader?
I think so, and that's all part of it. And there's a fine line there, Greg. He wants to do so well for his team, and he wants his team to do so well that he just wants to help in any way that he can. Well, some of that is out of his realm of responsibility, and he can't control if the left tackle doesn't get out of the stance, and he can't control if we have if the running back misunderstands what protection we're in and doesn't block a blitzer off his backside. He can't control that stuff. He's got to control the things that he can control, and by doing so, he'll perform at a higher level.
Steve, on Saturday you did talk about penalties and talked about miscommunications. How much during a game week do you kind of go back to the basics to help kind of shore those things up a little bit?
Well, we do quite a bit. I mean, we spend a great deal of time on it. I was disappointed in some of the penalties that we had Saturday night because I don't think that they are indicative of the team that we are. We punch a guy late after a kickoff return. We block a guy in the back on a punt return. We hit the quarterback in the helmet after an incomplete pass. We took, I think, 2 or 3 delay games. We had a false start. Those were the stuff that I don't think is indicative of who we are. We've been generally pretty good in that area of things that we do. And so we'll address them even more so this week to make sure that we can shore that stuff up.
Talking to Thomas Tutogi, his play Saturday, is he merit more of a look at that?
Yeah, I thought Thomas did a really nice job. I thought he wasn't perfect, but that's okay. He played physical. He was able to hold the point for us on some of the inside runs. I think at times versus some of those power looks that we were getting, it took a little bit of the pressure off John Timu and letting him play some outside linebacker stuff. And so I think there was a positive coming out of that as we move forward and down the road. There's some of those power teams coming down our way that we have that versatility to let Thomas play in the middle and maybe move Johnny back to outside backer to get us a little stronger internally and then still be stout on the edges.
Did Justin Glenn play in the second half because Shammer was hurt, or was that?
Yeah, Shammy was hurt. Shammy, his helmet came off and cut his eye pretty severely. I don't know if you guys have seen it yet, but it's swollen shut today. He's got, I think, 14 stitches or something there in his eyelid. So that's why Justin was in the second half.
Will he be able to play Saturday?
It's all going to be on the swelling. The doctors have assured us when the swelling goes down and his vision isn't impaired because of the swelling, he's good to go. So it's going to be on how his body responds.
Steve, when you arrived here in the first game, you guys played a good LSU team real tight, and you beat SC a couple weeks later. Then Saturday, it almost looked like totally different talent levels. Has the talent increase been what you expected in your first?
I think we have a talented team. I think that they're a talented football team, obviously. I feel like we probably haven't played to our capabilities yet, and we probably didn't take advantage of some of the opportunities that we had in that game that maybe could have changed the momentum. If you remember back to the first year, the first game, we're in a third and long situation. The first drive, we throw a screen pass to Jory Fogerson that's about a 60 or so odd yard gain play, and then we hit James Johnson for a touchdown the first time in the red zone that I thought really energized our crowd. It kept got our crowd really in the game, probably gave our football team a sense of we belong. It maybe put a little bit of doubt into their football team. And Saturday night, I felt like we had the same opportunity to do so with the turnover on the opening kickoff. And in turn, by not scoring there and settling for a field goal, I think that maybe that energized their crowd, that maybe empowered their defense to get a 3-and-out right there, and maybe put an inkling of doubt into our guys that maybe this is going to be a little harder task than what we thought it could be. So sometimes those opening drives and series of games can have a real effect on a psyche of both teams, good and bad. And I thought maybe that had a piece of it Saturday night.
As far as kind of bringing this program up to maybe SC or some of the elites in the past 4 years, injuries obviously have played a part. Is that part of it, or is maybe some of the in-state guys leaving? What are some of the things?
I'll never give you an excuse of why we didn't play well. It's obviously pretty clear we've dealt with some pretty significant injuries on our roster. But that being said, when I look at our starting 22, I like those guys when we take the field. And we're more than capable to go win big football games, and I think we'll see that as the season goes on.
Steve, outside of when you took over the program and kind of changed the culture a bit, does this feel like maybe the most adversity you've faced since you've been here?
Probably. I was kind of talking to our training staff here, and I said, something good's right around the corner. Some of these guys are going to start to come back, and that's just how I always view things. But this is the hand we've been dealt, and sooner or later we're going to get a good hand, and we just need to play it well when we get it. And in the meantime, we just got to keep scratching and fighting and clawing and doing the little things right. And that, like I touched on earlier, that's the part that's been probably the most disappointing, is that we haven't done the little things right that can combat some of the bigger issues that we're dealing with right now. And in turn, they've almost magnified some of the bigger issues. And so we've got to get those things fixed this week. That's why this week is totally about us and our ability to play the best brand of football and put the best product on the field that we can, regardless of who our opponent is. Whether it's this week or probably for the next few weeks to come, is getting ourselves right and putting what we do best on the field to see if that's good enough to win.
Is there any ETA on like guys like Felder or Curse or James or anybody might be back?
Felder, I know, is starting to run on the treadmill this week, which is encouraging. So he's going to be able to put some weight on the foot. I think Jamal Curse is probably in about the same boat when it comes to that. I know that Reva and James Johnson are still probably a few weeks out. When you break bones, and obviously in James' case, there's some ligaments there, bones, it takes that long to heal. It's 4 to 6 weeks. The body that's proven over time. So in time, we'll start to get some guys back. In the meantime, sure, it'd be nice not to lose anybody else, but that's the game of football. We've got to be prepared to deal with it.